Okay guys, Chili Games here and welcome back to the channel. So gonna be doing a little bit different today, and obviously I'm branching out in the content that I want to make, so go easy. Honestly, what we're going to be doing today is comparing Fletcher and Lightning as the gunboats, and deciding for me personally which one's better. And to do this, I've compiled a couple of games and moments and screenshots of results and yada 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 to maybe reinforce my theory that I think Lightning's better. I think one of the biggest things, and we'll get to it, so I don't want to get ahead of myself here. So obviously I'm going to go over the commanders real quick. I'm using ARLEIGH BURKE. That's because I have access to glass cannon. I could use 1,000 cuts, but it's not that great in my opinion at this level. Sidestep and rather be torching. You get 5% chance of fire on Fletcher, so I feel like this plus 2% with Legendary 2 on him is actually like insanely good. Without it, you literally will go the entire game without getting a fire sometimes. It can be ridiculous. And so for Lightning, we are going to go with wrong button here. Vian, pretty much same commander, glass cannon again, sidestep, and rather be torching. Fletcher has 7% chance of fire. Lightning has, I believe, 11. Yeah, 11% chance of fire, and that's one of the biggest reasons why I think that makes this a bigger gun or a better gunboat. And it might not seem like a lot, but in gameplay, it it can mean a lot. And so obviously I tried to give both ships their due, and when I was playing these games I was only using guns. I know that there might be a couple that had one torpedo in or so, but I'll go over that. But I was essentially only trying to use guns in these matches and just see by the amount of shell hits how much damage I had and the amount of fires I had. Obviously, a limitation of this is that no ship is the same, no match is the same, so results can be more in favor for some matches than other matches, and I realize that, but this is a quick simple test for me, and this was done in about 5 or 6 games. I think it's between maybe 6 or 7 games that I got these results from, playing in between the two, taking little snippets. So this is going to be the first part. Really hope you guys enjoy this, and let's get into it.
So first up is Lightning, and these are probably my best results. You see over 120 hits, 10 fires, 83,000 damage. This one was really one of those satisfying games in Lightning. On to the next one. I have one torpedo hit for 10,000 damage, but regardless, 230 hits, 6 fires, and 90,000 damage. That's pretty solid. The torpedo hit was like 10,200 or something like that. I can't remember. This was probably one of the worst games. 267 hits, 5 fires, and only about 60k damage. So one thing I want to talk about right here is the muzzle velocity and the air drag. So these are taken from, it's a little website that a friend gave me on the Discord, and these are for PC, but he said Legends uses the values under the PC version 8.3. So when checking it out, Lightning has and I'll go into more detail once we get to Fletcher as well. Lightning has a air drag coefficient of 343, and essentially this is just how much, I guess, it's almost like, I would say like a gravitational pull, like how much pull does your does it have on the shells. It's going to be so much easier to explain with Fletcher. However, I'm going to go to muzzle velocity. So initial muzzle velocity is 774 meters per second, which is decent. It's actually lower than Fletcher, and that's all I'm going to say about it now, because I'll be able to compare the two once we get to Fletcher later. So first off, this is just a little clip against Vanguard. Vanguard's pretty lightly armored, and you see us pop a fire almost immediately on him, and then once he burns, his damage control switch to AP, getting some nice salvos there. Unfortunately, he goes undetected. However, we have this last volley in the air, Immediately after his damage control is off, we get that fire on him, and as he becomes detected again, we get one more little shot off and get super lucky here, and that's a fire. And it might not look much, but that can be about 20,000. I forget how much fire damage actually is, but that's a solid 20 extra K damage for your game there. And here is a little clip at the end of this game, I believe. I'm just going gun blazing here because that's what I was trying to do for this. So immediately a lot of fire. That was kind of lucky. I hit one shot. We have no worry in the world here. End up lighting a second fire, meaning he's going to have to use a damage control. I switched to armor piercing against a Synop, and even at this range with Lightning's AP, I mean Lightning AP is great. People say Fletcher's is better, but I mean for Citadels maybe. If we're talking about Destroyer AP, I would rather go with the Z23. Fletcher's is just kind of meh in my opinion, and you see at this point I'm just trying to I'm honestly just kind of fooling around. I'm trying to see what damage I can get and where I'm penetrating, and obviously Synop has like negative superstructure, so it's it's pretty difficult actually to get HE damage on him. But here we go. He burned his damage control earlier, so now I'm just trying a lot of fire, and I was getting kind of unlucky here, but we end up lucking out, I think, right about here. Yeah, we get one right there, and in the next sub I'll get another one on his nose, and I was aiming for this third one. I think we could have got it, but I wasn't paying attention, and the time ran out. But that's 4 fires pretty quick, and I could have done that almost all, you know, behind an island or smoked up. I didn't have to take any damage, and I don't know why I have the end stat screen. Yeah, so 80,000 damage, 13 fires, which is 100. Like it's solid, over 300 hits. That's very solid. You know, couple that with torpedoes, you're getting some permafloods maybe. So I mean that's a big thing about Lightning is its fire starting chance. And this was just funny because I was able to kind of cut this whole first part of the game. So what's going on here is the destroyer came. Their Kagero came out to their island. You see where he's last spot there, and we have an armada of destroyers right here, and it's just a Mexican standoff. And I'm the only one who's like not in a smoke screen, just chilling. So I mean, there's no ships. They all left to that middle spawn there. So I'm literally free to just charge this guy, and this Kagero is helpless. Unfortunately, he gets torped from just sitting there. So like, I was so ready to just come around this smoke screen and just blow his propellers off. And this is quite weird as well. I actually get frustrated, and you'll see where I kind of jiggle my camera. But obviously I'm not shooting torps because I don't want that to kind of skew my damage, and it would make things differently. The second Kagero is like, man, that didn't work too well for the first guy. Let me try the same thing. So I'm literally fooling around right now. I'm shooting AP at this guy. I'm trying to get better at shooting AP, and I'm noticing I'm getting a lot of overpins, so maybe I need to aim lower. It's actually kind of hoping to get this skill here, because I have zero idea what this guy was thinking. I mean, he literally, I don't know. And this Sharn horse is like number 3. Unfortunately for these guys, I think this Sharn horse and this Colorado take about like 18 torps combined, so I get like 0 damage here. The concept still applies, and you get to see a little bit more of the Lightning AP as well. Honestly, most of the time when I was doing this, I was trying to focus mostly on high explosive, because that's what you're going to be firing the majority of the time. And you really don't want to underestimate the amount of damage you can do with fires. And you know, think of it this way: if you light a fire on somebody, you make them burn their damage control. And actually, one second, this is where I get pissed. I wasn't locked on there, so my shells were going to frickin' nowhere. And anyways, I was pissed. If you're lighting fires on somebody and you make them burn their damage control, what if you have a friendly destroyer who has torps out, and you know, you're putting targets in a spot where they don't have damage control? You're opening up slots for your other teammates to basically hit torps, land perma floods, hit perma fires. So the more fires you can spew out really quickly, makes people churn through damage controls and heals, which is massive. So I fast forwarded this clip. This is the same clip. Nagato here came up with a little bit of trouble here. We're past 10 kilometers here, and the shell velocity was really kind of getting. You see how they're coming down, almost like a meteor. They still feel satisfying though. One thing to note about the Lightning, as we get a fire there, is it only has 120 millimeter guns, while Fletcher has 127. So keep in mind that Fletcher has the bigger guns here. That's a massive thing to look at when you're talking about a gunboat and like quote unquote best. But we're getting consistent damage here. We light that first fire, he burns his damage control. We immediately light the second one as soon as his damage control comes off cooldown. I'm aiming for that second spot, and at this point I'm just trying to be like, man, I wonder what I can get with the AP here. And I don't think it's honestly that great. Another thing is, notice how I'm not using a smoke screen here because I don't need to. I'm spotted by a plane, but if that that Nagato decided to shoot me, I could easily fast forward up here into this island. He wouldn't hit me, so I get to save a smoke screen. Unfortunately, this Nagato is sailing in a straight line and he's going to take a couple torps. I was really hoping to get a little bit more damage or results off of him. And I gotta say, there's another fire as soon as his second damage control comes off cooldown, and I was really hoping to get that second one. But that is going to be it for him because he's going to die from flooding. And at this point in the game, I figured it was over. Full health Sinop, doing absolutely nothing, and I really didn't want to shoot at this guy, so I was hoping that I would torp him pretty much like that and get a devastating strike. But long story short, it does not happen. We're moving on to the next clip right about now. So here comes the really fun part. So this was the Fletcher game that I had, almost 400 main battery hits with 9 fires, 76,000 damage. And this was a brutal match. I was strictly shooting my guns only, and I was shooting battleships. However, I feel like if I was in Lightning, I could have done much better. And this was halfway through the game, 250 hits, only 43,000 damage with 4 fires. These games with Fletcher are painful. We'll get to the next result here. This next result was pretty solid. I was mainly shooting cruisers here, but still, regardless, 200 hits or so, 89,000 damage, 7 fires. So this was definitely one of my better games in the Fletcher. Now we're going to get on to the gameplay. What I'm going to be getting to now is probably one of the biggest things that I want to talk about. Is for the Fletcher, muzzle velocity is 792. You'll realize that is higher. Lightning had muzzle velocity of 774. So and another thing to look at is the air drag for Fletcher is 0.347 compared to 0.343 on Lightning. So what does that mean? Basically, I'm going to put it in simple terms because I had a hard time struggling this, and this might be way over my head, but I asked a friend in the Discord, and he said generally that's about the right idea. Obviously, it would be nice if Legends had these details. We have to look on the PC stuff. But what does that mean that Fletcher has a higher air drag? So I'm going to put it in terms of if you're shooting at a target 5 kilometers away, Fletcher's initial muzzle velocity is going to be better than Lightning's because the shells don't have time to slow down due to that bigger air drag coefficient. But if you're shooting at targets further away, talking about maybe 9, 10, or even 11 kilometers, even I think Fletcher can actually get 12, which is crazy. That air drag coefficient, since it's greater, is going to start tugging on those shells a lot harder. And so that's why it feels like Fletcher's shells literally just float. And Atlanta has this same problem. And that is why I think that Lightning, while it doesn't have a faster initial muzzle velocity, it's not that much less. Maybe it's a little bit like 20, maybe 18, I think. But your shells don't drag as much as they go in the air. and creates for a much easier arc to shoot with, in my opinion. And this is really the only clip that I got with Fletcher that was, you know, somewhat decent. I was in a smoke screen here, everyone's pushing in, shooting out a Bismarck. I was like, man, this is a pretty good chance to really show sitting in a smoke screen and kind of just doing damage. I got kind of excited because I was shooting out of York here. Even then, the HE, I mean, the biggest problem with gunboats right now is there's no perk for destroyers to increase shell penetration. So you see me doing just very, very minimal damage to this York here, and he's not turning broadside enough, so we can't get any citadels either, which is very disappointing. Still sitting at, you know, 27k, so it's not terrible. However, I just feel like these shells, even though they're bigger than Lightnings, the total effectiveness of them is very questionable to me. The fire chance really inhibits your ability to put damage down range. Luckily we get one in there, and I think this Bismarck had to have been running an accuracy build because we were lighting fires on him like crazy. Getting some actually decent damage there, and you realize that he's not saturated at all, so we're getting all this superstructure damage off of him. So that's I wanted to give Fletcher, you know, it's fair due, and I was trying to be unbiased as possible. Obviously, to me, Lightning is a little bit better for the gunboat issue. And that's really going to be it. This game kind of putted out and we won. It was stupid. But to me, I think Lightning is the better gunboat. It's better suits my playstyle. Obviously, these are very skewed results, so take it how you see it. This is my opinion. Please voice yours in the comment section below. And guys, if you enjoyed this video, offer any comments to help or whatnot. I really appreciate it. But I appreciate you guys all the same. Y'all have a good one. Chili Games is out of here and going to drink a water because his throat